What's up, guys? Murderer Birds here, bringing you my anime review for RWBY episode 13. I'm so happy. The first step towards Jean arc, manning up, being, the leader and the good person that he is, finally standing up to Carden Asshole Winchester, and that's his new name. I'm not even going to call it Team Carden, I'm just going to call it Team Asshole, because that's all they are. But anyways, I love this episode so much. It was 6 minutes, whatever. But anyways, I'm just going to start from the beginning, with Team Juniper, finding out, ever since Carden found out about Jean's secret, he's pretty much had him on a leash, having him do all these stupid-ass objectives and, stupid-ass tasks or whatever. And Pyrrha is ignoring him. He feels that he's screwed up, and, the whole thing with Carden, so that's pretty unfortunate. And then we get Ruby. I love Ruby so much, her personality and the way that she just portrays herself. And this episode just confirms it. Every time, Jean would say something negative, like a negative outlook that he has, she would just be like, nope. He's like, I'm a bad leader. Nope. I messed up. Nope. I just love that about her in this episode. It was really upbeat, and he definitely needs that. He definitely needed that, especially. And, both of them can relate. Much like Ruby, Jean is coming to terms with learning and developing as a team leader of Juniper. And though she even mentions the fact that, you're a leader, so you can't be a failure. You have to set an example, because as a team leader, your team is going to look for you for support. They're going to look for you for advice, guidance. And the fact is that, you have to have that. You have to put your team first and yourself second. It's not always about you anymore. So, your problems aren't your own. Your problems are your teammates' problems. And, you can't falter, because if you falter, you just bring them down too. So I really enjoyed the fact that she gave him reassurance in that aspect. And that's overall, reassurance in any situation, not necessarily just his. So I really enjoyed that. I freaking love Ruby, her upbeat personality, and she's pretty much a badass. So that was one of the primary parts of the episode that I really enjoyed. So moving on, we find out, they go into the forest. They pretty much have this task of collecting samples from the trees, the sap, I believe, and, bringing it back. And from that, Jean and his team, so freaking lazy. Like, I don't even understand why they're at Beacon, I really don't understand. The other three dudes don't even talk. They just sit around, and Carden just orders Jean around. That really pisses me off. And, Jean's doing all this work for them. And then we find out a few things about Carden, too. Well, from this episode, it's implied, that he is pretty jealous of the fact, with Pyrrha, the fact that, in class, like, she stood him up and, like, pretty much made him look like an idiot in class. He didn't know the answer. She gave out the answer. So he pretty much, I don't know if he's insecure or anything, but he felt that he needed to get payback for the fact that, she made him look like an idiot in front of the whole class. So with that, I feel like, he is probably a bit insecure, with the personality that he has. He tries to make this persona of himself that he's like an upstanding, smart, intellectual, jock type that doesn't really care about anything. So this episode, he gets Jean to do his dirty work for him. He gets the sap and he collects these wasps, and he's like, hey, you're going to throw it at her, and we're just all going to watch and make fun of her and laugh at it. And I'm so freaking happy that he said no. He stood up for himself, which is exactly what any person that's bullied by anybody should do. Shouldn't take any bullshit from anybody. And he turns around, he's like, no. He's like, what did you say? Turns around, picks up the jar, and throws it at Carden, and is like, no. Now that's one of three things are gonna happen. One, Jean is actually gonna man up and deal with Carden head on. Two, he's gonna get his ass beat and sent to the infirmary. Or three, his friends are actually gonna come in and help him. One of those three things are one of the things that I'm looking forward to with the next episode. But overall, he did the first step, which is stick up for yourself. Don't let anyone, there's always a line that needs to be drawn. And the fact is, another thing that I actually thought of, Professor Osman, would probably already knows that Jean didn't admit himself into Beacon. There's certain hints and tips throughout the series so far that kind of gives me that feel. But also the fact that, if he came to Beacon and he wasn't, originally supposed to be there, these trials and tribulations are probably something that would, in the end, make Ozpin believe that he might not have initially deserved to be here, but he's definitely earned his spot. With the fact of growing into a team leader and sticking up for himself with Cardin, who was obviously more skilled than him, instead of just giving in to everyone's demands and considering himself to be this low individual who's insignificant and has no purpose or reason to be at the school. So maybe this is also a first step with the fact that he is finding his own way to actually remain at Beacon. And so I really enjoyed this episode overall. Don't know what's going to happen next. One of those three things are definitely going to happen. So let me know what you guys thought of this episode. It was about 6 minutes, so more or less, I still enjoyed it. I watched it twice, actually. But anyways, let me know what you guys thought of this episode, about Jean's development, about Cardin's douchebaggery, anything like that in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel as well. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.